The season finale of Obi Wan Kenobi has finally arrived. Last week's episode, part 5, was probably my favorite episode of this show so far. We saw Vader use the Force to manipulate and pretty much just job out Reva. And the story's not over because the cliffhanger was that Reva found the communicator that Obi-Wan used to speak to Bail Organa, and she's trying to unravel the mystery of what the connection is between Obi-Wan and Bail Organa and what they are hiding, which is obviously, as a Star Wars fan, you know, they are hiding Luke and Leia, the children of Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, who at this point in the series does not even know they are alive yet. So this episode had two major plot threads going on at the same time, the A story and the B story. Early in the episode, Obi-Wan realizes that he's going to have to go confront Vader at some point because Vader is going to keep chasing them, and that could lead him to Leia. So the idea is he's going to basically send Leia home while he creates a diversion on another planet because of Vader's obsession with finding him and duels with Vader while Leia is taken to safety. So the main plot would be the rematch between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. We saw a little bit of it in an earlier episode, but it's the first time they've met since Revenge of the Sith, which is something that I've been dreading for a while because obviously it recontextualizes episode 4, and for years, the episode 4 duel was supposed to be referencing, the dialogue was supposed to reference the Battle of Mustafar. But now, I guess it's going to be referencing this battle, which is 10 years after. This is Disney adding to the canon, which I feel not, I don't like that. I don't like it. But there is a pro to this. I'm going to get to it here in a minute. The other storyline, the B story, is Reva going to Tatooine to discover what the hell's going on. And, you know, we do see Kid Luke here in this episode. He actually does more things. And there's a whole separate story where Reva goes to the Lars homestead, the same one that we saw in episode 4, A New Hope. And actually we saw it a little bit at the end of Rise of Skywalker, but the less said about that movie, the better, because I want to pretend like it never happened, to be honest with you. You know, that whole sequel trilogy is a mess. But that plot line ends up leading to a situation where Reva is basically fighting off against Owen, who's blasting her with his, you know, his laser gun or whatever, and she's deflecting it. She wants to know just what is going on. Her intentions are not 100% clear as to whether or not she's going to turn over Luke to Vader early in the episode, but she's not a good guy, obviously. But they keep cutting away between the Reva story and the Vader Obi-Wan duel. And one thing I liked about the duel is that it was in this mountain range where they had these tall mountains, so it's a different locale. We've seen Star Wars duels on empty Death Stars that have been abandoned. We've seen them in volcano planets. We've seen them, you know, we've seen every kind of terrain possible throughout Star Wars. This is one that's been different, so I do commend Deborah Chow for introducing a new aesthetic, sort of a new look to it. And it was also dark, and when you have a lightsaber duel while it's dark, it actually, like, they did that in Return of the Jedi, excuse me, and I like, and they did it again in Attack of the Clones. I like how when there's a lightsaber duel and it's dark, it makes the lightsabers pop out more. It makes them, like, the swinging, the clashing, like, it makes them pop out more, and it just has a really cool, like, artistic style, kind of like a painting. So when it comes to, like, the look of this episode, the direction, James Earl Jones' performance, all of that stuff was top notch. So I got to give it to Deborah Chow because the directing here I thought was really well done. No arguments there, and I would be perfectly fine if Deborah Chow came back to direct more Star Wars in the future. I'm not sure how much more Star Wars I want from Disney, to be honest with you, but as a filmmaker, or in this case, a TV show maker or whatever, she is talented when it comes to aesthetics, shots. She knows how to make things look good. Let's keep it a buck. The attraction for this episode, which has been teased now since before the show even started, was Vader versus Obi-Wan, but this time it's not Anakin in his human, like, you know, what he was in Mustafar. He is in the Darth Vader suit. We've got James Earl Jones being great, and Obi-Wan is back to form because as they're fighting, Vader comments that your strength has returned. So Obi-Wan, which we all suspected, is taking this fight more serious. So I'm going to say this about this lightsaber duel. This is, without question, unquestionably the best lightsaber duel of the Disney era. So, the lightsaber duels in Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, they don't compare to this one whatsoever. Now, I think the Force Awakens one was a lot of fun because you had two rookies doing it. The Rise of Skywalker one was a big letdown because it was supposed to be the last one of the Skywalker saga. This one right here I thought was fantastic. And what I liked about it, besides the already mentioned aesthetics, is that they're both using the Force while they fight, but in different ways than what they did back in Revenge of the Sith. I liked how Vader and Obi-Wan were using the mountains around them as projectiles and to drop them on each other. And I really liked, and this is something we have not seen very much of, how Vader actually used the Force to manipulate the ground beneath him to create like a pit. Like, that was really, really cool. And it really reminded me of the Empire Strikes Back duel between Vader and Luke, because I like how when Vader, he doesn't really play fair, even though it is a duel, so it's a fight to the death, so it doesn't matter. Because he's dueling with you with a lightsaber, but he's also throwing stuff at you with the Force. Remember how in, Empire, he's throwing those, like, crates or whatever at Luke, and Luke's got to defend that while deflecting the lightsaber? Same thing here. And I like how Vader was like, you've got your strength back, but you still have the same weakness, and that's your undoing, which is, of course, he feels it's Obi-Wan's compassion. Because Obi-Wan still has a lot of remorse, a lot of guilt, and a lot of bad feelings about what happened to Anakin. Ultimately, the way that George Lucas portrayed him in the prequels, Anakin Skywalker is a tragic character. He is a guy who, especially with Clone Wars, how good they wrote him in that show, he's a guy who was a legitimate war hero and fell to the dark side because he couldn't grasp the fact that his wife might die, so he wound up actually creating that reality. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And he's a tragic character, and Obi-Wan feels for him because he's known him for decades at this point. So it's one of those things where the way the battle's laid out, it's almost like he's afraid to pull the trigger, to really go all out against him like we did against Darth Maul in Phantom Menace. The scene where, like, Vader drops Obi-Wan to this, like, rock tomb, basically. He drops all these rocks on him, like, that, and the fact that he's like, when he's fighting him, he's like, "You have failed, master." Like, I'm just like, okay, well, clearly, at this point, Vader sees himself as being not the student, but on par, at the very least, with Obi-Wan, at least when it comes to powers, lightsaber dueling, and the power of the Force. Because remember, during this time period, this is when the dark side was at its absolute max and was in control of the galaxy. I love how Obi-Wan was in touch with his emotions, thinking about Leia and Anakin and just a lot of things going through his head, that he used that to escape, to use the Force to escape the pit. So again, these are nice touches. Now, as I'm watching this, of course, I'm giving you like my thoughts as I'm watching it. I'm enjoying the ideas here. Don't get me wrong, but I still feel like this show, obviously, you could say it's unnecessary. It's obviously, this show exists to make money and capitalize off of nostalgia and the Anakin Obi-Wan stuff, and Vader's popular. But it wasn't needed. I didn't think it was needed. But what they did with it, they made the best of a bad situation, because they gave us a very intriguing fight, and one that I would say is actually better than the one on the Death Star from Star Wars, from A New Hope. Obviously, that one's not going to be on par, because at that point, Alec Guinness was old, and they weren't really doing these crazy lightsaber duels with like flips and whatnot. But this one did a real good job of sort of bringing in elements from their first duel while still having it be emotional and powerful. So they did the best they could with what they had. So then Obi-Wan starts doing the Vader trick. He lifts a bunch of rocks around him, and he throws them with the Force, of course. Throws a bunch of rocks, just like something Frieza would do. Threw a bunch of rocks at freaking Vader, and he's getting pummeled here. So this is, again, we had heard about in the spoiler information that Obi-Wan gets back in touch with being a true Jedi Master. And although Vader is much more powerful with the Force than he used to be, Obi-Wan is back in this episode. It took a while for him to kind of get reconnected, but he's back. Then Obi-Wan starts to really smash this dude by throwing more rocks at him. He damages Vader's like electronic system, slices Vader on the top of his back, and then slices a part of his helmet off, which again we had heard about, because why would Hayden Christensen be here if it wasn't to play this role of him being the tortured Anakin Skywalker? It's not just a flashback or him in the Bacta tank. Like, that's why they did this. It's very reminiscent of the fight between Ahsoka and Vader at the season 2, I think it was, season 2 finale of Star Wars Rebels. And then when Vader sees Anakin, when Obi-Wan sees Anakin, bro, like, Ewan McGregor is a tremendous talent, bro. The faces he makes, it's like he made a face of like pity and remorse about what happened to his friend, bro, because his friend is living a very tortured life. And I like how when Vader talked, it was kind of like a combination of James Earl Jones and Hayden. It was still Hayden's voice, but it was almost like, fizzly and like discombobulated, you know what I mean? Which in some ways I misunderstood, didn't really make much sense to me, because when he's in the Vader suit, his voice just changes to James Earl Jones, which has always been a little weird to me, because they don't really have the same cadence, they don't speak the same, but this tried to bridge it, but I don't think it really worked. I really don't. And that's just a problem that's been around since, the prequels, really. You can't really fix that now. And Vader tells him, he's like, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did, which is sort of like where he got the idea of Vader betrayed and murdered your father, which is what he said in A New Hope. Obviously, that wasn't the original plan. We all know that, but this is supposed to fill in the gaps with that. Because there's truth to it. Anakin sold himself to the devil, basically, and he destroyed himself from within. So again, it goes on to once again establish the damaged character. Obi-Wan was almost damn near crying during this scene, man. Ewan McGregor's tremendous. But it was also weird because a few episodes ago, Vader was like, you made me. So, I mean, which is it? But I get what they were going for here. And then Obi-Wan says, and then my friend is truly dead, which is supposed to mirror what Luke said to Vader in Return of the Jedi when he's like, then my father is truly dead. And then that was the scene. I love that scene, by the way, in Return of the Jedi, where Vader's kind of, there's conflict. Luke even calls him out on it. Like, he doesn't want to be that guy. Vader does not really want to be Vader. He wanted to just live a happy life with Padme and his kids. And it never happened. And it's like a happenstance because shit got real bad for him. So Obi-Wan pretty much leaves him there and refers to him as Darth. Dark Lord of the Sith. And that's what Obi-Wan called him in A New Hope. But like, again, he leaves him there, which I thought was interesting. Like, he didn't try to kill him or anything, which again, he already beat the guy. He beat him. It's the same thing that happened before in Revenge of the Sith, where he beats him and he just leaves him alone because, he's not out to just kill the guy. Now, obviously, you would think that killing Vader at this point would be smart because he is a terror to the galaxy. At the same time, Anakin he took an L here, so this is Obi-Wan, like his last big W, as a Jedi Knight. Or, at least until season 2. So while that's going on, Reva has finally confronted Luke as a kid, and she thinks back to when she was a kid in the Jedi Temple when it was getting raided by Anakin when he had first gone to the dark side, and her sympathy kicks in, which we've talked about before in the spoiler. This was leaked out by Jason Ward of Making Star Wars like forever, weeks ago, really, where she realizes that she can't just kill a kid. She's not going to be like Vader, who does this without thinking. She's a more compassionate character. I'm not a big fan of the character, to be honest. I think she came off a little bit annoying, but this all somewhat makes sense. You know what I mean? I'm not going to trash it completely. I made a video about how I was worried about this ending because it kind of makes Obi-Wan like seem like someone who failed his mission, because his mission was to protect Luke. But actually watching it and the way it was portrayed in the context was a lot better than reading about it. Obi-Wan tried to protect Leia while dueling with Vader so that Leia got away, which, that's fine. That's a heroic thing to do. Then he tries to get back Tatooine fast enough to save Luke. And but Reva could have killed the kid at any point, but she didn't. But now that we have full context, based on the previous episode, we know that she was already kind of turning back to the light side. So the fact that they actually had some foreshadowing makes this ending way better than the way it originally read. This is why I always say when you read something about a movie or a TV show, it's different than actually watching it, because when you see it, you get full context and you see the delivery, what the director wanted, and it's totally different. That's why one of the things that annoys me is when somebody reads like a Wikipedia entry for a film. Oh, I don't want to see it. They read the plot. It's like, well, what if the movie's better than it reads? Like, tons of movies are like that. So Reva gives Luke back to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and thus he survives. Obi-Wan and Reva have this conversation about being free, and, he tells her that, she says she couldn't do it, and, he's like, well, it wasn't really in your nature. And I get it, but the character still, like, this Reva character still did come off not as annoying as I originally thought she was going to, but she still comes off like someone who... It's very corporate. It's a very corporate character. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? They had a scene that I was not expecting where Vader is talking to Palpatine, and Palpatine questions Vader's state of mind right now with his old master, and there's a lot going on with Vader internally. But Vader is again trying to get refocused, and that was cool seeing Ian McDiarmid reprise his role as the Emperor again. That was fine. I was wondering he was going to be in this, and I did not know about that, and that was cool. They did a thing where Obi-Wan met with Bail Organa, so he went to Alderaan, and of course Leia was dressed like how she did in the original film. This is all like kind of forced connective tissue. Lucas did this too in the prequels, where he, Bail Organa's like, or Obi-Wan's like, if you ever need me again, if you need my help again, let me know, or whatever. And he says, hope that day never comes. It's the same thing as, it's literally a reference to Star Wars, to the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope. Because, like, help me, Obi Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Like, literally, that's what they're referencing. Like, and they shoehorn these things in, that prequel-itis stuff that, I don't hate it, but it's so obviously manufactured. I think when I do my season review of this show, I'm going to go into that a bit more, because I really got to talk about that. I think it's something that's becoming more and more apparent as Disney keeps working with this franchise. Obi-Wan talks to Leia about her parents and confesses that he did know them and that she has traits of both of them. I really did like how they took the John Williams Leia theme and they kind of used the leitmotif here for the music. That was good stuff. Good production. The last big sort of surprise was at the very end when Obi-Wan sees finally the ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson reprising his role of Qui-Gon Jinn for the first time since 1999, not including doing the voice. We're talking about actually being on camera. And, I know that he was still trying to figure out and try to learn how to become one with the Force to where he actually has a physical body. He couldn't do that before, but now he knows how to do it, and they're going into some canyon, so that could lead into the next season. I'll probably do a separate video about that. Overall, again, they tried to kind of shoehorn connections into A New Hope in here. You could tell that they weren't really planning like another season, but it is coming at some point. I did enjoy this. I did like it, but again, it has that unnecessary feeling about it to where it could have been left alone. But they did the best they could, especially in this episode. And I was not bored. I was entertained. I'm not sure if I'll be watching this like multiple times like I did the original movies or even the prequels, but it was not as bad as I was expecting, and that is good. Something changed last minute, because I know in the original spoilers for this show, in the original leaks, Vader ends up killing the third sister. He ends up killing Reva, and that was not here. So either they changed it or it was just not correct information, but I could see them taking that scene out because they're going to do a second season, and thus that's probably where she's going to fit back in. That's my guess. Anyways, I'll have a season review up very soon. Thank you again. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Leave a like. See you guys soon.